Hi, my name is Hope from Hopebroidery. I'm an embroidery designer, teacher, and kit maker, and today I'm going to show you how to stitch these simple, beginner-friendly embroidered flowers. Here are a few other flower patterns I've made recently. In today's workshop, I'll show you a way to stitch flowers that is so simple and totally perfect for beginners. The supplies you'll need for this project include an embroidery hoop. You can use any size you like. I'll be stitching mine in a 4-inch hoop and framing my final project in a smaller 3-inch hoop. Any fabric. I'll be using 2 layers of this cotton fabric, but really any fabric that doesn't stretch will work just fine. A way to transfer your design to your fabric, and I'll be using a pencil today. 6-stranded cotton embroidery floss in any colors you like, and the pattern that accompanies this video I've provided the exact DMC codes for replicating my sample hoop, but today I'll be stitching with different colors just for fun. An embroidery needle. I don't get too caught up on sizes so long as my floss fits through the eye and the point is sharp enough to go through my fabric. Scissors. Use whatever scissors you have available. If you have fabric and embroidery scissors, that's great, but if you don't, it's no big deal. And you're also going to want to have a scrap piece of cardboard. I like to prepare to back my hoop before I even get started. So to do this, all you need to do is to trace the inner portion of your embroidery hoop onto a piece of scrap cardboard and cut it out. If you have a scrap piece of archival mat board, even better. Either way, you'll be happy you did this now. Next, we need to get our fabric into our hoop. To do this, start by separating your inner hoop from your outer hoop. I generally recommend keeping the screw on your right side if you're right-handed and to your left if you're left-handed. I'm using 2 layers of fabric because this fabric is very thin, but you don't have to use 2 layers if you're happy with the way just 1 layer looks. Place your fabric on top of your inner hoop. Don't worry about those wrinkles, they'll iron themselves out once we have our top hoop on. Place your top hoop on and tighten your screw about halfway so that it's not falling apart. Then go around your hoop and gently tighten your fabric all the way around. This step is so important, I cannot overstate how much easier it is to stitch with fabric that's been pulled nice and tight. Keep tightening your screw and pulling your fabric nice and tight until all those wrinkles are gone and your fabric sounds almost like a drum when you tap on it. Once you're done getting your fabric into your hoop, you'll want to trim all the way around, leaving about 1 inch of fabric as trim. Now we're ready to transfer our design. I'll be using the window method. The window method just means putting your pattern behind your fabric and using light, for example, the light from a window, to help you see the design through your fabric. Because I'm using a pencil and pencil can be super hard to remove from fabric, I'm only going to be making what I call guide marks versus tracing the design exactly. These guide marks will help me figure out where the flowers begin and end, as well as where the stems begin and end. If it's easier for you to go ahead and trace the design exactly and you don't mind seeing pencil marks when you're done, or if you're using an erasable fabric pen, you can go ahead and do that. Again, the pattern that accompanies this tutorial includes links to more in-depth tutorials for all the things we're doing today, including transferring your design to fabric. To learn how to thread our needle, I recommend taking about an arm's length of floss at a time. I'm pulling a shorter length here because it's easier to demonstrate on the video. This floss is made up of 6 separate strands of floss. For my flowers, I need just 3 strands of floss. The easiest way to separate floss is to take one strand and pull it out of the rest. I do not understand the physics of why this works and/or why it doesn't knot up. Keep doing this until you have just 3 strands. Thread your needle at one end, and at the other end you can tie a knot to keep it from going through your fabric. For my stems, I'm using just 2 strands of floss. To do this, I'll pull one strand out and fold it over, leaving a loop at the end. I'll show you how to start your floss with a loop versus a knot when we start to stitch our stems. I like to do this versus starting with a knot whenever I'm using an even number of strands. You can't start with a loop like this if you're using an odd number of strands, unfortunately. In the next shot, we'll start stitching. My hoop will be in a stand. You don't need a stand for hand embroidery. The stand just makes it easier for me to keep the shot steady. This pattern uses just 2 stitches, detached chain stitch and straight stitch. I'm going to start by stitching my flower shapes using the detached chain stitch. Bring your needle up through your fabric. It won't come through your fabric because remember we've tied ourselves a little knot to prevent that. Bring your needle down through the hole you've just created, but don't pull all the way through. You'll be leaving a loop. Bring your needle through the middle of your loop at the top of your flower shape and pull. And finally, bring your needle back down through your fabric just over your loop. This will secure your first detached chain stitch. You'll continue stitching these detached chain stitches for each petal in your flower shapes. Off camera, I have the pattern sitting next to me so I can make better sense of all these dots and know which flower shapes should have 3 petals and which only have 2. If you're brand new to embroidery, my most important advice is to not worry about it looking too perfect. It's not supposed to look perfect. And if you're stitching with me today, don't worry if you can't go quite as quickly as me, you'll get faster over time. Watching somebody do a new stitch can be super useful for learning, so if all you can do today is learn a detached chain stitch and later a straight stitch, that's fine. You can always come back to the pattern and finish it on your own time. I'll let this portion of the video play in real time. If you're stitching with me, I'll let you know when to look back up for our next step after these flowers are stitched. Okay, it's time to look back up. Once you're done with your floss, you can secure it to the back of your hoop by weaving it in and out of the stitches in the back without piercing the fabric. And you can also tie a knot here if you want. Now I'm grabbing the floss for my stems. Remember, this floss is just one strand folded over itself to create two strands, which left me with a loop at the end instead of a knot. You'll weave your needle underneath your stitches on the back of your hoop and then bring it through that loop, and this will secure your floss to your hoop. The stems are simple straight stitches. A straight stitch is just one single stitch from point A to point B. Again, I have these dots to guide me, and I also have my pattern to help me figure out the placement of my stitches. Now that I'm done stitching, it's time for me to finish my hoop. If you stitched your project in a bigger hoop like I did, you'll want to take it out of the big hoop now. When framing in a smaller hoop like this, I like to push the fabric down over the inner hoop before attaching the outer hoop, just to be sure it's placed correctly. Once I know it's placed correctly, I can attach the outer hoop just like I did at the start of our project. If I were to back my hoop right now, all that extra fabric would push up against my project and leave me with bumps on the front of my hoop, so at this point I'll give it a little trim. Flip your hoop over, gather your fabric with one hand, and with the other hand start to slide your circular piece of cardboard over the back of your hoop. Once all that fabric is underneath the cardboard, very gently press it down until it feels secure. Don't push all the way down or you'll risk distorting the front of your project. This is a great project for playing around with different colors, and I can't wait to see what you make. If you enjoyed today's project and would like to learn more about embroidery, I'd love to be one of your teachers. You can find me on social media at Hopebroidery or visit my website at hopebroidery.com. I also have a monthly subscription box for hand embroidery. These are a few projects from past boxes, and subscribers get all the supplies and instruction they'll need to complete each month's box. Happy stitching!